Welcome into Boxing Scene Today. Well, there's nothing like a knockout in boxing. There's nothing like a late knockout in boxing. There's nothing like a late knockout in heavyweight boxing. Let's throw in the third in an upset as well. That's right, Fabio Wardley getting the knockout in round number 11 over Joseph Parker in what was a modern classic in the heavyweight division. Well, we've missed him, but he's back. Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champ, Chris Algieri, me and him today, because I've missed him so much. It's good to have you back, champ. When you look at this fight, there are a million ways to look at. Oh, I forgot. Also, a controversial end to the fight. Referee getting a lot of criticism over the stoppage. But before we get into the negative, let's talk about the positives. Some guys are beaten by the moment. Others are beaten by their opponent. Fabio Wardley, despite his lack of experience, wasn't beaten by the moment in this fight, was he, Chris?
No, not only was he not beaten by the moment, he excelled. He really showed up. He was in the stiffest challenge of his career by far. The amount of experience that Joseph Parker brings to the ring, head and shoulders above anything that Fabio Wardley has seen thus far in his very young pro career and very young career in general. I think he had like 3 amateur white-collar fights before he turned pro. Absolutely ridiculous what he's been able to do. But the progression that we've seen from him each and every fight in recent form against that higher and higher competition has been otherworldly. He's getting so much better every fight. I'm watching this fight early on, and I'm seeing him do these pulls, and he slips, and he slides, and he's super athletic, super explosive. His change of direction, just showing incredible athleticism for a guy who's 6'5", 240s. He's a modern heavyweight. With athleticism like that and the way that he's progressing in terms of his style and boxing IQ, the ceiling is really high on this kid. I mean, this is a kid, 30 years old. Really high on this guy. But absolutely incredible performance. Not only did he step up to the plate, but he knocked it out of the park.
And when you look at it, the knock or the stereotype of the puncher is as soon as they're not being aggressive, as soon as they're on their back heel, a lot of times they kind of shut down. Joseph Parker was winning the middle rounds of this fight. One scorecard had him ahead by 6 rounds. I think that's too wide, but he did control the middle section of the fight. But Wardley never shut down, never gave up, even when he was being outboxed. Chris, is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought Joseph Parker had a good game plan, was performing quite well. I don't love the 260-pound version of Joseph Parker because I always saw him as a guy who was a strategist, a technician, but also had a really good gas tank. I think carrying around the extra weight is actually hurting him. And when you got a guy like Wardley who is really quick and explosive and pulls that trigger really fast and delivers power, that can hurt you a little bit. But absolutely, I thought Joseph Parker was handling the fight and really starting to kind of run away with it on my scorecard. He got rocked early in the second round. He recovered. Third round was tough. Recovers in 4, 5, 6, 7. And the more rounds were going, Parker was starting to rack those up. And listen, the rounds weren't blowouts, but Parker was just kind of edging, staying ahead. Wardley not being as busy in those rounds. The jab wasn't as active as it was early on. But, man, that game-changing power that Wardley has, because he's able to pull that trigger. And aside from, him not folding under the pressure and succumbing to the lights, his gas tank was great. He still was able to throw those big explosive combinations at the end. And like the finish, he unloaded the tank in the 11th round. So all around, both these guys, I think, showed up. They both had a great game plan. It's just, this is heavyweight boxing, man. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
We'll get into, of course, the controversy of the finish in a moment. A lot of people disputing the stoppage itself. But when you look at it, Parker was taking a big risk taking this fight. We talked about it before the fight. You said, he's staying busy. He's making a lot of money with this fight. Of course, this was in Wardley's backyard. The New Zealander got a lot of money for this, but he now moves to essentially the back of the line when you look at the Usyk sweepstakes. Risk reward. Chris?
I feel terrible for Joseph Parker. I say it all the time. I'm full disclosure. I love Joe Parker. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a fantastic fighter. He's had a fantastic career. He just currently has a fantastic career. But he's just one of those guys. He just couldn't get that next title shot. And we forget he's been a world champion. I know. Boxing public kind of forgets that Joseph Parker has been a world champion. It's just been a while, and he's been trying for that Usyk fight with that title fight that he really deserves. He should be the guy fighting this, and more it's just like another tough fight in front of him, another tough fight in front of him. No title shot yet. You got to fight this tough guy. Eventually you're gonna lose. And on Saturday, he did. He found that that young, hopeful guy who had enough to get past the very experienced Joseph Parker. And it's unfortunate. Yeah, the guy made a ton of money these last couple fights. I think he had 3 Riyadh fights, underdog in all of those fights. the Wilder fight, the Zhile Zhang fight, the Bacoli fight out of nowhere. He was supposed to fight Dubois in that fight, but now he has to step aside once again. But this time he actually lost. So risk versus reward. Yeah, the bank account is padded, but you're probably not going to get a title shot ever again.
When you look at it, when you look at the names that he fought previously, all the guys you mentioned, dangerous punchers who, even Bacoli coming off the couch, that guy can still knock you out. He's gigantic, heavyweight with a ton of power. What did he do in those fights that he didn't do in this one? What was the difference?
I just think it was what he had in front of him. With Wilder, again, you got to kind of look at those fights in hindsight, because at the time, that's Deontay Wilder. He only got hit you with one. But since then, we kind of realized that one-trick pony has been kind of figured out, and Deontay doesn't have that same fire at this age. With Zhile Zhang, he's 42. Yes, he's a monster. Yes, he was coming off those awesome wins against Joseph Joyce, 2 destructive knockouts. But then again, you look at him since then, he's getting stopped by Caballel, hasn't looked great since before that fight. And then Bacoli, again, guy came off like 2 days notice off the couch, came in looking rotund. Yes, he stopped him. That's amazing. But also, it's like, what'd you really have in front of you? A guy who really didn't really have a hope to win that fight. So when you break those fights down in that way, it's like, yeah, okay, I kind of can knock them a little bit. But with Wardley, the thing about Wardley, this guy that we see is the best version we've seen every single time, because he's getting better all the time. When you're starting from basically zero, the advancements he's able to make each training camp really, really shows. So this version of Wardley, he just really wasn't prepared for that guy, because we haven't seen that guy. We didn't know he was that good. We didn't know he could jab with his left hand down like that for 10, 11 rounds. We didn't know he could throw 40, 50 punches in an 11th round to get a stoppage. So it's kind of just a new guy, hard for Joseph Parker to be prepared for that version.
Is it a fair statement? I don't want to say criticism. It's a fair statement to make. You and I have both trained fighters, me for MMA, you for boxing. And one of the things I said is you can be the exciting, you want to see him every time guy, or you can be a world champion. You have to be judicious with when you get in there. The guy who'll fight anybody, anywhere, fight guys on 2 weeks notice, those guys typically don't get to the top for a reason. Is that a cautionary tale? Like, hey, you want to be anywhere, anytime guy? You'll make money, as you said. Fans will love you. It's hard to be number one with that kind of mentality.
There's a couple guys that come to mind when I think about that. Some of them are much lower level. Like I have some contemporaries who grew up in the same, kind of battlegrounds that I did coming up. My grassroots, road to a title. Who were that? They were really good amateurs, national level guys, and they were like, oh, fight? Yeah, I'll take a fight. Of course, yeah, whatever. Payday? Cool, let's go. And then, the records were upside down. But then at higher levels, you got guys like a Sergey Derevyanchenko. Mm-hmm. Fought everybody, never a world champion. One of the best, never been a world champion guys out there, who's fought literally everybody, and given everybody hell too. And you got Joseph Parker. Joe has been a world champion, at least he has had that. But yes, in terms of people who are watching and studying, a career like Joseph Parker, at least this version or this portion of his career, yeah. Do you want to be a world champion, or do you want to be the guy who fights all the tough guys and wins here and wins there and gets a lot of money? Even a guy like Gabe Rosado.
Yeah,
he's another one. Fought everybody, totally respected in the sport, but never got that world title fight. And there's always that. And I personally, this is my take. No one else has to take this. I would rather be a world champion and not rich than rich and not be a world champion. But that's just me. And I'm a lot of people are probably going to say you're an idiot. But I cherish being a world champion.
With the stakes that were apparent last Saturday in what was a fantastic fight, I was entertained from start to finish with this fight. With the stakes that were, the stakes of this fight, where it was, the fighters involved, was the stoppage premature? Let's dive right into the controversy right now. These are heavyweights. For people who did not see it, Parker was still on his feet. It looked like he was at least aware of where he wasn't out and didn't know what was coming. He was not deer in headlights. He looked like he was trying to defend the punches. He had taken a lot of shots, but there was time left in, once again, round 11. There was another round to go. He was well ahead on the scorecards. What's your take?
Okay. Simple answer. Was it a premature stoppage? Yes. Was it the worst one I've ever seen? Absolutely not. Even Andy Lee in the post-fight press conference, they asked him about the stoppage and if it was premature, and he goes, there was opportunities for the ref to step in, and guess what? He did. He's like, we should have thrown more punches, kind of situation, and I have to agree with that. And that's one of those fights where when I watched it, I felt like the stoppage was coming. Okay, when it did actually happen, I was like, he could have let that go. I would have liked to see a little bit more than that. But then I went back and I watched it again on Sunday. And I was like, yeah, well, he was not throwing back. There was opportunities for him to make it so you're not going to want to stop this fight. I think at some point it was like 40 punches thrown by Wardley and like 3 thrown by Joe Parker. And finally he picked it up at the end and threw a couple of shots, but the ref had already decided to stop the fight. But also you got to think, it is the 11th round. These are big, dangerous heavyweights. And
nobody's cutting weight.
Nobody's cutting weight, but also, these guys have been landing. And Joe got hurt a couple times during the fight. They hurt each other multiple times throughout the fight. So it was a damaging fight with 2 big guys, two dangerous punchers. It's always better to be too soon than too late with a stoppage. That's always my take. And even I have to look at the reactions of both Parker and Andy, his coach, afterwards. And they weren't screaming robbery. They weren't screaming bloody murder. They weren't screaming that this is the worst thing ever. That kind of tells you a little bit too. It's just it is boxing. Andy said that. I said, that's sometimes how it happens in boxing.
When you look at it, in a sense, it's a concept a lot of people don't get. If you can stop a fight from, let's say, 1 to 10 scale, you can stop it from 7 to 10. Right? 10 is a guy just getting beat up. His hands are down. He can't see. It's over. 7 is a guy's a little rocked against the ropes. It's your fault you were at 7. That's kind of what you teach. Once again, you've coached fighters. I've coached fighters. Once you're at 7, in MMA, you're curled up on the ground. Don't look at the referee like, what are you doing? You curled up on the ground. I don't want to hear it. This idea of, hey, once you're at 7, it's a possibility. You have to know when that possibility is. A guy like Joseph Parker has to know when he needs to throw back, right?
And he does. And he has been a guy who's shown to have a great chin and has gone in. He made his career in fighting punchers. Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Zhilei Zhang, all these guys are really, Joe Joyce, all guys that can really, really punch. The only one to stop them was Joe Joyce. And I thought that was kind of like a weird performance from Joe. But otherwise, he's been very good at fighting punchers, and he understands. He's been rocked in fights. He's been hurt in fights. He knows how to survive. A lot of that comes down to boxing IQ also, like knowing, like you said, when you feel like you're crossing that threshold, hey, the ref can stop this fight if I don't do something. And that thing could be clinched. That thing could be punched. That could take a knee. That even came up. People brought up about me taking a knee during the Ruslan fight. If I didn't take a knee, I lost that fight in the first round. So if Parker takes a knee, you mentioned he was ahead six rounds by one judge. Yep. So he takes a knee. He takes a 2-point round.
Draw maybe?
Comes back, or maybe he wins the next round, or maybe he recovers enough. Maybe, but at the end of the day, so I actually learned about taking the knee from Joe Cortez, the great ref. I was at his house. He was showing me something in the ring and literally was talking to me about refs and the way that they think and the way they act. Kind of like how you're saying right now. When you know you're at that point where a ref could stop a fight, you got to be aware. And Joe said to me, he was talking about clinching. He goes, Chris, clinching is not illegal. Excessive clinching is. He goes, also, you can take a knee. And I was like, in my head, that's blasphemy. You can't take a knee, right? We're all tough guys. We can't take knees. And he's like, listen, the fight can either be over or you can be down and still in it. He's like, better to still be in the fight, even though you're down a point or down 2 rounds. And I just thought about that. That's a really good point. Same thing with Joseph Parker. Maybe he goes down. Maybe he has to win that last round now in order to salvage the victory, or maybe to get a draw. But at least you get the fight on. At this point, the fight's over. There's nothing you can do now.
When you look at the future, and we're going to talk a lot this week about the future of the heavyweight division. Of course, now everyone talking about Wardley versus Usyk. Did you see a man who can give Usyk, probably the greatest heavyweight boxer of his generation, problems? Do you see it?
Yes, because the athleticism, the size. He's a legit super heavyweight, 6'5", 240 plus. Pulls the trigger, closes the gap, all those things. But it's Usyk. I honestly, I was actually watching the fight, and it was, again, this was a great fight. And I was looking, I was like, I think Joseph Parker can give Usyk some trouble. And I think he might be able to figure out Wardley easier than Joseph Parker at this point. Because Joseph Parker's he's a tough out. He's a very tough out. Big guy, strong guy, physical guy. And we've seen Usyk have trouble with some of those bigger guys who use their body, body shots, use their physicality. But then at the end of it, once Wardley closed the show the way that he did, and he had that late power and that late rush and that belief, as long as they're still standing and the final bell hasn't rung, Wardley's dangerous. I don't care who you are, Usyk included. Does that fight happen next? It has to. It has to. It makes way too much sense. One, he's coming off of a potential fight of the year type fight where everyone is paying attention. Boxing, heavyweight boxing now has a new kid in the town, new kid on the block. There's new juice in the division now. Also, wildly popular. 0-2. You got a British fighter. The British fan base is awesome. Usyk, British fight. 0-2. British fighter, excuse me. 0-2. It makes too much sense financially. It makes too much sense in terms of what the landscape of the heavyweight division is right now. And also, it's an entertaining fight. Wardley's always entertaining. I've never watched a fight that wasn't entertaining with this guy because he's either knocking you out or coming from behind to knock you out. So it makes way too much sense. And I feel like Usyk is the kind of guy who watches that fight and goes, stiff challenge, tough guy, young guy. Why not?
The contradiction. And once again, we'll talk about it all this week, the heavyweight division. The contradiction is young and inexperienced, 20-0-1, but not young. He's 30, right? This idea that he's young and experienced, but he's not a young guy. So what do you see the timetable being here? What do you say? Do you say he has more time because he hasn't had a lot of fights on him? Or does he have less time because he's 30? You can fight on later, obviously, in the heavyweight division, but 30 is not a spring chicken in boxing.
No, it's not, but it's heavyweight boxing. So he does have more time, but I don't think it matters. I think you got to strike while the iron's hot, and I think he has an opportunity to fight, for the undisputed championship of the world against a literal living legend. I think you go for it now because listen, if he loses to an Usyk, and I'm not saying it's ever okay to lose, but if he loses to an Usyk, I think he still has a lot more to do because Usyk's not going to be around for that much longer. And I think Wardley will be a heavyweight champion of the world one day, whether he beats Usyk or gets one later on. I saw some real talent this weekend. I was really impressed with what I saw from him. But also, it comes down to what you were saying before, Jimmy. Sometimes it's better you don't know. That little bit of like delusional idea that I can't be beaten. I remember that. I had that when I was 30. You couldn't beat me. I didn't have that when I was older. When I later in my career, you start thinking about certain things. So it's actually a good thing to have, to be, even though he's 30 and not young, he's in his physical prime though. I think maybe mentally and psychologically he's a little bit young in that kind of Superman delusion of I can't be beat. I'm the king of the world. And you got to have that. And you see that with Wardley because if he's in a fight and he's down, you can't tell by looking at him. He doesn't wear it. He doesn't own. He's not accepting that he's losing. He's like, shh, I got a shot. As long as I'm here, I got a shot. So that comes with it. So I think now strike while the iron's hot.
When you look at him and, of course, the other big name in the heavyweight division, Atama coming up, is it one of those things where Atama could maybe build that resume? He is literally young at 20 years old. This idea that maybe Wardley, because of his fan base, would have the inside track when it comes to an Usyk fight.
I think so. And also because he beat Parker. And when people were talking about Atama versus Usyk, I said, whoa. No one should be talking about anybody versus Usyk if they don't beat Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker is the guy that should be fighting Usyk. And for whatever reason, the powers that be didn't want to make that fight happen. Okay, they keep throwing these other guys up. You got to get past Joseph Parker because which just turned out to be a really difficult thing to do. He's been the underdog his past 4 fights in a row. Not the last one, but prior to that, and kept winning. So now you got Wardley, who is a little bit older. He's 30, not 20 like Atama, and he beat Joseph Parker. So he's the mandatory for 2 belts, I believe now, right? So yeah, I mean, he's got to be ahead of Atama at this point for multiple reasons.
Well, it's a red-hot heavyweight division. As we always say, as a heavyweight division goes, so goes boxing. We discuss it all week here on Boxing Scene Today. Chris, great to have you back. Jimmy Smith, thank you so much for watching. Join us. Find out while moons are doing it.